I can see what's happened in the news showing up in our conversation reports, sometimes within minutes of it breaking on the news.
This is the second year in a row that Revolution are supporting you. I'm proud to be doing so. Can you tell us a little bit about Switchboard as a charity?
It's great to be working with Revolution again as well. That's really, really exciting. We love the partnership we have with them. And then Switchboard, as you say, we're the national LGBTQIA+ support line. And this is a huge year for us because we're 50 years old. So
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I know I don't look it, but I wish it some years back. But it's a big year for Switchboard, but also, you know, not only are we celebrating 50 years of the organisation, we're an active support line that's there for our community. So right now, as you and I are talking, we have volunteers that are on shift, providing support to people from within our community, you know, chatting to them either over the phone, over Insta message or by email, and providing them with a safe space to talk about things that are worrying them. And that's what we offer, is a confidential space that's non-judgmental and non-directive for people to reach out to Switchboard and have conversations that perhaps they've not been able to have in other parts of their lives or at all in some cases.
It's so interesting. How do you find that having those conversations, open up those spaces for those conversations, has helped in the queer space?
Spaces have always mattered to us, whether they're held online or whether it's over a telephone or even a venue, you know, a bar or a club. And I think we know that there is not as many spaces now for our community as there were. There's been quite a big decline in terms of physical spaces. So I think that makes then kind of virtual space, if you like, even more important. We're talking the sort of head of Pride season, and there is a perception that everything's kind of a lot easier for our community now. And to some extent that is true. But equally, it's still really not great for an awful lot of people as well. They're still finding their way, and so having the space that our volunteers provide, that staff our service, is just so important to people.
Yeah, and you cover the day-to-day runnings of Switchboard. How have you found those conversations changing and adapting as the years have progressed?
Yeah, I mean, they certainly have changed, absolutely. If you were to look at the 50 years, obviously I haven't been at Switchboard for all of the 50 years, spoiler alert, you would see a range of topics have come up. And obviously, if you were to go through 70s, you know, when we started, the conversations were much more about, you know, we're talking, there's no internet. So people are ringing up trying to find out where they can go. But equally, people are ringing up saying, I've just been in a gay bar, it's been raided by the police, and I've been charged with something and I don't know why. It's through the 80s and the HIV and AIDS crisis, which completely engulfed not only our community, but us as an organisation, you know, through Section 28, all those big, heavy topics that our community has had to, you know, endure through equalisation of age of consent, all different types of things have all shown up in the story of Switchboard right up to the present day, where we still get calls now that you would have got in the 70s of people saying, I've just come out and I've been thrown out by my family, or I don't think I can come out at work, I don't think my employer is going to be sympathetic to me, or I won't feel safe. You know, so those
We're
are
still having those same problems.
Absolutely, we are.
Sure.
Yeah, even though law protects us in many of those settings, you know, I think there is sometimes there's a differential between what the law provides and what reality delivers.
How do you think that opens up into a bigger conversation about how necessary Pride is?
I understand that people can now and again be a bit glib about Pride and go, well, why do you need it? You've got, you know, we've got equal marriage now and what have you. But, you know, when I think about it through the context of my own life for a moment, you know, my wife and I, we think about booking a holiday. Well, there's a number of countries in the world where we're not going to go. Because
exactly, yeah, you wouldn't touch ground there.
Yeah, you're not going to be safe there, and that's something that a lot of other people don't have to consider. Similarly, until you've kind of landed in a space where you don't have to second guess whether it's okay to hold your partner's hand on a bus or a tube or wherever it is you might be in the UK, a tram, you know, for example. Until we're in a world where you don't have to think about that there is an underlying message of safety that we don't get to enjoy on a constant basis. That I think Pride enables us to say, look, we are here, we do want to celebrate our identities and have a day where we can just feel really confident in any space that we're in. And I think for a day or a month or wherever that is, Pride enables people to do that. But I think also what it does is just gives people the opportunity to learn a bit more about our community as well. And find spaces. And often people, that aren't, that are maybe yet to be part of our community, and that they know they probably are. Sometimes going to a Pride for them is a really profound experience.
It's the safe space to know that like you can take up that space, that energy.
Yeah, it is, to know that you can actually be who you are, and seeing like tens of thousands of other people being who they are and getting on with their lives is affirming. If you don't have those sort of moments of visibility, it makes it much more difficult. And as somebody who did grow up in the 1970s, there were no identifiable role models really that I could think of.
So we touched a little bit earlier on Switchboard's 50th birthday. How did you guys celebrate?
I like to think, and the feedback suggests that people do agree. And so what we did is we did a couple of different events. We did one thing at the top of the BT Tower, which was to bring a lot of Switchboard's alumni back. Somebody from the beginning of Switchboard came along, one of the founding members that we managed to track down, and we took our history and our archive there, because we have this really rich history of Switchboard, particularly from 74 to 2003, where everything was handwritten into logbooks, and we have them all.
Wow.
So we brought those out for the day, and they tell a story of our community. It's a funny and sad story in equal measures. And we celebrated the history and the kind of the people that made it what it is. A couple of weeks later, we had just a massive party at the Waldorf, where we took over the Waldorf for the night, and we basically gave what I would describe as our own version of Taylor Swift's Eras tour, only Switchboard.
She wishes.
Please. In fairness, I do constantly doff my cap to Taylor Swift. We celebrated the history and remembered the people that made the organisation what it is today, and a substantial number of those are no longer with us. And there was a moment in that night actually, and it's probably, for me in my time at Switchboard, the most poignant moment was when I was doing the sort of opening remarks.
I can imagine.
And I asked people to raise a glass, and you looked across a room of people that have been here from the 70s to the present day, and you saw these glasses go up, and you thought, they're all remembering somebody individually that's probably either suffered now, or suffering now, or is no longer with us. So that was really powerful, but I think it was like an uplifting and joyous night.
What you were saying, it's almost like the conversation really hasn't changed much then, has it?
Yeah, no, I think, some topics have maybe evolved and language has evolved with it, but I think the sentiments of coming out, being able to comfortably express, who you're attracted to or how you identify, has always been part of the kind of tapestry of Switchboard anyway. But I think, we're seeing those themes. It's a difficult time for our community right now. There's a lot of stuff going on in the world which feels very targeted. And we see that in the conversation reports at Switchboard. When certain things happen in the world, I can go and look at the conversation reports for the day, which, by the way, are anonymised, so you're not like finding out people's personal data or anything like that. But it's just the theme of why people are calling, and I can see what's happened in the news showing up in our conversation reports, sometimes within minutes of it breaking on the news. So it shows you how much of this sort of live feed we are to our community's exposure to the events that are now affecting our community.
Yeah, and it's important to feel heard outside of those spaces. So how do you think that people can show up in the community as better allies?
When I look at the time we're in now, and it's really difficult, it genuinely is a really difficult time for our community. I look back at, particularly Switchboard, the history that sits within us as an organisation, and I wonder how our community made it, particularly through the 1980s, because they did not have what we have now, which is a substantial number of allies, not just in terms of individuals, but organisations, brands. The fact that we're doing this today, right? This is not credible in the 1980s. It's not credible probably 10 years ago.
Slightly, not at all.
Not even 10 years ago. And so I think in these difficult times, this is where we need those allies, in whatever format that allyship exists, to stand up. Sometimes standing up means standing beside someone. Now and again, it means standing in front of them.
I agree. Yeah, and I think it's so necessary now for people to be active allies. I think passive allyship, there was a time for it, and that time is not now. We need to be active in everything that we do, especially for our communities.
Yeah, I think so. And all it's about is respecting people, really. When you really boil it down, actually, people just want to live their lives, feel safe and be respected. Doesn't seem like a lot to ask, really.
No. So, we've talked about the 50th birthday, we've talked about the plans, super extravagant. Are we going crazy for Pride this year?
Well, Switchboard always goes somewhat crazy for Pride anyway. We're going big at Pride in London this year because it's our 50th year. So normally you have around kind of 50 of us marching at Pride in London. We've worked with the organisers. We're going to have a much bigger number of people this year, probably about 150 Switchboarders marching at Pride in London near the front of the parade, which I think is fitting for an organisation of our history. So that's really exciting. Yeah, that's so exciting, and it's such a special day. And you know, anyone who's ever been involved with Switchboard has been to one of those prides. It's happened to me every year since I've been at Switchboard. You finish the parade, you come out with your Switchboard t-shirt on, you're walking through Soho, someone you've never met before stops you and goes, you won't know this, but in like 1991, I called you from a phone box in Derby, and it was the most important phone call of my life. And I'm like, wow, that is what Switchboard does. And so we'll be doing that in London big time, but I think we're going to be at about 15 prides across the country because we're a nationwide service. So we don't just show up in London, we're right across the UK, Northern Ireland, certainly we'll be up in, I think, the northeast as well, down into the southwest. So
brilliant.
Right across the UK,
going on
into
tour.
Cardiff as well. Yeah, exactly.
The Switchboard tour.
The Switchboard tour is just get a big bus, really.
Yeah,
we? Just kind of like drive around in it.
And is there a specific song that you can already envision playing throughout the entire of Pride?
Oh, well, I mean, that's difficult because everyone's got their own kind of flavour, haven't they, when it comes to music.
What's your go-to flavour? If you were to pick like one song, Pride song of the year, what would it be?
Oh, I think, well, actually, I still find it difficult to drill down to one. I think now, because of the 50th bash we just had, I would definitely go with a bit of Jessie Ware and Free Yourself.
Oh, brilliant. Okay.
I absolutely love that. But I think if I was looking at others, you can never go far wrong with a bit of Mary J. Blige, if I'm honest. And Just Fine. I absolutely love Just Fine. That's like my little personal anthem. Just Fine is just such a perfect song in every regard.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
And
Mary J.
And then dialing it back a little bit further, 13-year-old me, just Karma Chameleon. It just blew my mind when Boy George came on Top of the Pops. I was like, what?
It was. I feel like it was a revolutionary moment that is so revolutionary to the point to this day you will catch me. Come on.
It's just, yeah, it's fantastic. So I think any one of them three, I'm happy.
Brilliant. So can we run that on the playlist for Pride, please, everyone? Let's get it going. Thank you so much for joining me today.
No,
I've had a pleasurable time with you.
It's been lovely to meet you. Thank you for the questions. It's been great.
Thank you.